What's going on, guys? It's Frito here. Zarya has very quickly become one of my favorite tanks to play in Season 18 because with her new perks, she's got an entirely new playstyle. Previously to the perks meta, I would have told you that there's kind of a solved singular way to play well with Zarya. Aggressive into the front line, using your beam damage as much as possible because it was going to be more ammo efficient to give you more damage. Well, now with the combination of the minor perk that gives you charge just from hitting ult fires, as well as the spotter perk, which gives self-heal to an allied teammate when you shield them, the perks meta has given Zarya an entirely new style of play that is perhaps even more effective than her old one. This really shows off what the perk system is capable of. You can take a hero and just tweak a few things, and all of a sudden, a different aspect of their kit is the priority. This makes me excited to play Zarya because I get to emphasize parts of her kit that I like best, shielding my team, timing with them, and protecting them, as opposed to simply running things down with my own mechanics alone. Because you can maintain charge while hitting ult fires, this means you don't have to be the one going in aggressive. You can play more as the midliner tank as opposed to establishing the front line. Your teammates can feed in aggressively, and you can choose to go in or stay anchored on some cover as opposed to needing to be the one who's in taking initiative all the time. This is an absolute game changer and allows you to be more opportunistic and defensive with your bubbles, and I'm noticing with that as an opportunity, I can have a lot more clutch bubbles because I haven't had to use them in order to just maintain my charge levels so that my damage can be at all effective. The first thing to note is that because you're gaining charge with ult fire, you're going to want to weave it into all your shots. There's not a benefit to beam things down repeatedly because your subsequent shots are going to do more damage scaling up if you keep spamming the ult fire. I do think this perk is better than the knockback that allows you to rocket jump all over the place because it enables a DPS increase, which is the type of carry perk that makes tanks go from being good to really scary. Maybe in 6v6, I would say use the knockback rocket jump perk to get around because your charge is probably going to maintain at a high level all the time anyways. But for 5v5, you're going to be totally fine playing in the midline on cover, bubbling yourself and teammates to get charge, but mostly working them down with your mortar strikes. In this game of Nepal, it's probably one of the biggest Zarya gaps I've had, mainly because of a playstyle difference. The Zarya keeps walking in forward into the front line, and because I manage what I call the midline, which is to say I'm in front of my supports, but my flankers might be ahead of me. And that's okay. From the midline, that's where you'll find characters like Orisa or Ramatra with his staff. They're still going to take some heat, but not necessarily need to jump into all the damage because they're shooting from range. From that type of position, you're going to see more clearly who needs a bubble and when, allowing you to have opportunistic uses of the bubble and just focus on hitting your shots to build charge first and foremost, which sometimes it won't build it, but it'll definitely maintain it at least. As 3 energy per ult fire, if it's on a single target, well, you're going to be draining that much anyway, but if you start to splash it, then it might grow. But more importantly, it's just counteracting the charge drain mechanic, which especially if you have to die for some reason, means dying as Zarya isn't as expensive as it used to be because it's more easy to build up to charge now. I find this really interesting because Zarya was kind of the first MOBA hero with a scale up mechanic in the game ever since 2016 Overwatch 1, and she was kind of the only one that did it. Season 18, the whole game kind of plays that way to level up your character and then be more aggressive with them. But this second round on Village definitely shows off the difference of maintaining and playing for charge and getting into that midline. First fight, them having the high ground doesn't necessarily win the game yet. I get my charge, then regen my bubbles, walk down main, and I'm looking to protect my team with bubbles and mortar strike into the squishies in the back. I will say that you can just tell the difference of the support gap here, where the enemy supports think they can get away with crossing my path, rushing in. This is kind of where you just see that you can't play that way in Season 18. Too many things are effective, and particularly Zarya ult firing into the lot of you, kind of similar to other characters that power up if you fight them inappropriately, like Brig gets stronger if the wrong thing's fighting her, for example, giving Inspire to her whole team, or shooting Zarya bubbles or Doomfist block. In the same way, if you give Zarya a target to fight that can't kill her, those ult fires are giving her more charge, even if you're not shooting the bubbles. That's what's crazy. And that's kind of what I'm exploiting here. The Lucio Kiri isn't that threatening to me. And so even though they can kind of live for a while, they're giving me charge, kind of just rushing into nothing. So the combination of my ranged hit scans, which are going to be able to pump damage from the high ground, but also my supports are more mobile and are just staying back, so they're not a target. Imagine if this enemy team was playing different support heroes especially, and just playing back, just not going in. If I had to only fight the Zarya, it would be a different story. But them giving me a target allows me to engage in and punish their pathing. That's what's making it a lot easier. I'm not a fan of Juno this season, but I'd prefer it to what the enemy supports are doing, as my Juno and Wu Yang just stay in the back and push pull and only go in when we have an advantage, as opposed to being the target all the time. A different kind of game here. This is going to be a full hold on Midtown with the spotter playstyle. I'm actually going to have a terrible time gaining charge or my perk, but I think it just goes to speak to what the meta is playing like right now, that this enemy Reinhardt's really going to have a hard time against me. And I've been beating Reinhardt's with Zarya recently, and I think it's because I know I don't need to get into the front line to get my value. So because of that, I can play back. He has to aggress in on me. And as long as I have my bubble for his pin, I'm pretty safe. Both my flankers are going to play super aggressive into the choke and just looking for my bubbles to save them from their over-aggressive tendencies or to especially counteract ults. Having bubbles ready to respond to these engages, it's like the enemy team doesn't expect me to have them at all because they're used to Zarya's needing to burn bubbles just to get her offense up. But because I know if I get to my perk, which I don't even do in this game, but that's what's going to be giving me charge, well, I can hold onto my bubbles much longer. So you're going to have to do a much better job slowly poking the Zarya out this season, because if you don't, she's going to be hanging on to those bubbles to respond to your big all-ins. And especially since so many heroes that go all in are good right now, Zarya is good at helping your teammates playing that way or responding when they get on your team. Not, of course, if you're playing too aggressive for yourself and your own value, but I don't think that's any good to do at this moment anyway. My favorite match of Zarya that I've had is here on Antarctic Peninsula up against a Reinhardt who normally gives you a lot of problems. Here I go through some learning pains on how to learn the character, trying not to give up the point for free, which is a phrase that high-level players will snap at you for if you don't play to contest the objective. But I really believe that playing for perk power and making the right matchup, considering you're going to get so many team fights over time, you really shouldn't force a fight like I try to do at the start of the game here, because my 2 bubbles just aren't enough. Like, I have to play way more patient and only engage like that if I have both bubbles, and I still might die. So unfortunately, just in this early game period, we're going to expect they're going to have the objective. That's just what they get. They speed boost in, their shield's in the way. We got to work that down and get up to our resources to start having a chance to take over the game. The more I aggress in and force the issue, while yes, I get charge, each time I'm impatient, I get punished for it as the Lucio and Reinhardt run me down. But things really start to change when I start dedicating to just gaining charge with the perk and using my bubbles to respond as opposed to force the issue and take space. This is a very typical type of play in a poke control style meta where they're going to have the map and your characters don't clear space. So you have to just poke and poke and poke until you have some space. Your guns create the space by getting them to move or getting the Rein shield down. And then with like the Wu Yang ult, then I can run in safely and not finally get run over. And when I've got my perk to maintain my energy, well, now I'm a threat against the things that want to run at me, and I don't have to burn my bubbles too early, so I get to stay in. The force magnifier of what this perk does for Zarya, I cannot stress enough how insane it is. The opportunity to hold on to your bubbles at all, but also just having high charge, like you used to not be able to have all of those strengths. There used to be a bigger trade-off. Well, now if you hit your shots, that's enough to charge you up. And now that my poke can play on the backside of the point, we're cross-firing onto their pathing lanes, and the Rein needs to close his distance in order to get value. I think this is actually kind of an issue for Reinhardt against Zarya in Season 18, because his perks give him Fire Strike and attack speed, whereas Rein kind of wants to pin the Zarya. But he's got some poke perks too. So I think actually against the Zarya, what you might want to do is build for the shield regen perk, rather than the aggressive one, because a Zarya that plays passive will not only poke you out, but will have more damage than you when you do engage. So oddly, I think you need a shield-based version of Rein to counteract Zarya now, and then I do think you would counter her like you used to. but you got to wait her out. Otherwise, the Rein going aggressive makes for openings for me to go use my alt fire on his team or getting the shots on him. And then I have charge. And if Zarya's at 100 charge forever, well, she kind of beats everything, right? Super interesting match here. And part of the reason why I love the Season 18 perk so much, because I would have said that the matchup between Rein and Zarya was pretty well solved before this perk change. Now this gives us something new to dig into, and I'm not entirely sure who I would want to be in this scenario. Whereas prior to this, we would have said Rein, well, just counter Zarya, easy peasy lemon squeezy, and now it's more complicated than that. The thing that counters the other is getting active with your perks somehow, or having the right one. And maybe it simplifies once we all learn what the best ones are, but by the time that happens, hopefully they change them up again. You can kind of see how disciplined I plan on being on this final fight. I am not going to clear space and have a chance of getting pinned or overwhelmed. Even when we have Juno ult, I'm like reluctant to want to just run in with it. No, I'm going to work up to my grab, actually. We only need one fight. Give me my 100 charge and invulnerability by having 2 bubbles. Thank you very much. Poke control meta in a nutshell. You poke for your advantage and engage with your resources. That's how this meta works. And now that Zarya can play off her ult fire, she fits right into that. Now I'll talk a little bit about what characters I don't want to see on the enemy team if I'm Zarya. I don't think a lot of people realize how to counter Zarya, but hit scans are really strong because they have trigger control, as in they can wait until the bubble's down and then headshot the Zarya. Particularly, I find Soldier super easy because he can get around her, get an angle, and just lay into her in the moments that she doesn't have a bubble, making it really hard for her to clear space. Now, with the new version, where she'll be at 100 charge, I don't know if rushdown characters will be as good. I would have said in previous seasons that you could just kind of break her bubble and run her over as Reaper. Bastion's firepower used to be enough, but maybe she's not out of position now that she can play on cover and gain charge. As I play more of Season 18, I start to realize that, well, a lot of the tanks just kind of do their thing, or at least the ones that are meta viable. They've got their MOBA skill set, and if you execute it, you've got a chance to win, which is kind of cool because it used to be how DPS felt in 5v5, right? But now with the overpowered giga buffed tank perks, a lot of them have their skill sets that even against counters or things that you would normally deem as counters, the perk upsides are so high that if you enact those plays, you are going to take over the game. That's making Overwatch 2 really fun right now. Now, as for what heroes I want to see on my team, most definitely at least one hard engage type character can be very helpful. So Genji, Reaper, Venture, characters that want to go in at melee range against the enemy, because playing that egregiously is going to draw some aggro and make for good bubble targets. From the support point of view, I would say this playstyle that I'm showing is pretty flexible, frankly. When you play in the midline, a lot of supports can help you, and it's actually kind of a low resource way to play because you're looking to give bubbles to other people and crossfire with your cannon. But if you do have speed or big heals, you can tape down W. Yet I wouldn't say that's what gets played most of the time. Luckily, playing from this midline position puts you in range for the Wu Yang heal amp. That's a major benefit, and you're both kind of sieging with your ranged projectiles from range. Otherwise, I would say, while I don't think speed's very good in Season 18, Lucio or Juno speeding you in and out of position will help you, considering I am saying you should forego the rocket jump perk, mainly because there's other tanks that have more mobility and can still play aggressive in the roster that, unless you're just a Zarya one trick and you want to get to certain parts of the map, I think having more damage and just staying in a normal position is going to work more times than not. I do think the added mobility certainly is the most upside when you're dodging an ultimate, but I'll take that downside, at least in 5v5, maybe less so in 6v6 though, just so that I can be more effective with my gun most of the game. I will say one caveat about Zarya though, the other top tanks that I think are really powerful fight her better than you'd think. I think people think Zarya is good against MOBA, and as a MOBA player, I'm not sure I agree. Same thing with Wrecking Ball. Both of them just go in and out too fast that they don't actually have to shoot your bubble target, whether it's you or another teammate. They can switch targets very easily, especially MOBA now that he has the perk that gives him more overhealth when igniting a target. He sort of doesn't hate it if he has to switch targets now, due to that perk being kind of OP. So what tends to happen is the Zarya gets whiffed out trying to bubble something that then doesn't get targeted, and she burns out what she's got, and they can move, reposition, and are still pretty effective with their damage. So you got to be careful playing up against those top tanks right now. But if you're enabling something like, let's say, I don't know, a Reaper, a Bastion, or whatever, those characters fighting a tank, then it's an entirely different story. Then you've got them and your amped damage with your charge going up, then you're a threat. But if you're not making a strong counter pick elsewhere in your team, Zarya by herself isn't going to be enough. Because remember, you're dealing with 1,000 health from Wrecking Ball with insane mobility. So you can't burst him fast enough, he's out. MOBA, kind of similar thing. Yes, the bubble stopped the lifesteal, but the overhealth, and well, he's probably going to be fighting your team as well anyway. All right, guys, that's everything I got for my Zarya video. Pretty fun for Blizzard to reinvent so many heroes this season. I'm in a pretty good mood about it. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to click subscribe and the bell icon to actually get notified when my videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito. I'll see you guys next time.